Hello, welcome to the Eagle 6 video. We're going to be showing you how to install the tight wall barrel Prometheus one here for a slight FPS increase, and obviously a steel barrel and the qualities that brings. We've got a slightly different hop arm here, which is going to give a little bit more lift on the heavier ammos, and a slightly different rubber here. So regardless of whether you like upgrades, don't like upgrades, at some point the original hot rubber will need to be serviced. So in that regard, this kind of shows you just how to service your hot rubber. So this is obviously the Tokyo Marine Mk18 gas blowback, and not entirely sure how this video is going to play out, to be honest, because I'm obviously going to be doing the work while on camera. So that's going to be fun. This is completely out of the box. I've not even done it beforehand, if you know what I mean, just to make things look a bit easier on camera. This is the full, could be the pain in the ass, could be 2 seconds, could be, a lot of hammering and looking quite hideous. But we'll just go through, rather than me talk all day about the stuff. So you're going to need the G&P URX rail tool, which if you look here, you can see I've ever so slightly just modified them just to make them a little bit thinner, so that they actually fit into the castle nut that's in here. So this has a, like I say, in real steel terms they call them castle nuts, but generally in airsoft we just call them locking rings. But essentially there's an inner locking ring inside here, okay, which then clamps down the rail part onto the actual barrel nut itself, and the back part, which is here, okay. So it kind of like joins this with that, okay. So so in order to remove this, we need the nut off, okay. We then need to slacken off these screws so that we can then take the rail off, and then we have to then remove the barrel nut to then remove this back portion of the actual rail part itself, if you know what I mean. So it's not possible to just simply remove these nuts and then just take the rail off. And unfortunately on these you can't take the hop unit out from the inside, so this whole barrel assembly has to come off in order to actually pull the hop unit out. So and on a normal MWS that's not too bad, but on this one, to get into that rail, you can remove the underside, and we're probably going to be removing that just for obviously better access today anyway, but that doesn't really help. So so yes, we're going to have to, he says you can't get a tool onto there, if you know what I mean, not without mangling it, and you're just going to have no leverage, no pivot action on there. So so what we're going to do to start off with, obviously simple stuff, we'll just remove this flash hider. I mean, if this video doesn't go well, I'll probably just cut the video there, if you know what I mean, and at least you've got a rough description, because I get so many questions about people asking how to even start doing this. But like I say, even if we like I say chop this video to just doing this part and not showing the rest, because maybe it doesn't play well, as a video, or just look great, then yeah, at least you've now got a rough idea, if you know what I mean, on what you've actually got to take off to actually do it. So flat bladed screwdriver, these screws on the side here, although they've got the washers on to try and stop them unwinding, they are a point of service over time, whether it's next generation or gas blowback. They will go walkies if you don't keep an eye on them. Okay, so rail off. Bear with me. So there's a small plastic rail detector on here, so it's sort of designed to protect the rail just as you pivot it. I mean, we'll do the pivot part now, if you know what I mean, so, and then we'll take it off afterwards. But basically there's a small pin at the back here. We're going to want to pop that out. for some of the large pins, and especially if you're teching for, you know, air quotes professionally, or even for yourself, non-marking tools, even if you have to make your own, are pretty good. So. Okay, so we're going to pop this up. Just watch out for this buffer at the back here. It can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So the best thing to do is to remove the blowback, or the BCG they call it, so carrier group, bolt carrier group. What are you catching on your bugger? Nothing. Okay, and then what I like to do is remove the actual buffer and spring, because otherwise if you just slam this closed, there's nothing to really hold it in place. So once it opens that latch, it just pings inside here, and then it's kind of like semi-trapped, so then you have to get a screwdriver in to kind of push it back so that you can actually then open the damn top up again. So, and you will be hammering this, so it will get knocked in and fire into the middle. So so now we're done with the internal section, and you can actually see the hop unit up there. Okay, so that'll be the first part of the hop unit, and then the second part is internal. The two joined together, so this is like the levers and stuff to basically form the actual hop unit itself. So we're going to close this back down. Okay, so we can now start to see the nut more. I'll just make sure this video is still going. I'm pretty low on memory. Okay, so that's the nut. And as you can see, you're only getting a very small portion of it with regards to you know, any kind of tooling. So obviously, if you're comfortable with the direction to hit, I suppose you could go old school and just hammer it with a screwdriver, but you know, you're going to be damaging it, marking it, and then we're going to obviously, and we have done, get requests, if you're not for new ones, and you know, just, you know, there's very few parts available, that particular ring, just an example, and it's going to be a pain in the butt for you to replace that. So we recommend highly not damaging it, although technically it is something internal. You can always repaint it if you want to, or some kind of chemical blacking, so to cover up any marks or scuffs. So now we're going to remove this gas block up here. I'm pretty sure it's actually 3 screws, if memory serves. Nope, it's just looking like it's the 2 at the bottom. Looks like maybe a 2.5. Okay, it's nice and loose, this one. So sometimes they actually lock tight underneath that. I mean, you know, it's not a bad idea for, you know, having something that doesn't unwind or prevents it unwinding, but obviously removal when servicing, sometimes Loctite makes that a bit hard. But just something for in future, from reassembly of all this, you know, touch a Loctite just on there, and you know, that adds that extra rigidity to it, prevents things getting loose over time. Yeah, it's hard to begrudge them actually, you know, putting so much Loctite on these things, because you know, they're not intending it to be stripped and thing, not for years, you know. So in terms of service intervals, so other than obviously the cleaning of the internals, which they make access for that. So yeah, so you can actually see like all the Loctite all squished underneath there. It's like literally, it looks wet and liquid, but it's obviously not. So that's what needs to come off. So obviously the tool is just going to drop down there. Come on, you bugger. There it goes. Okay, so it's all clipped in, and as you can see there, sort of modification just to enable it fit in there. There's multiple URX tools. I honestly can't remember the exact one, if you know what I mean, but unfortunately you might have to take a bit of a gamble on there. It's years ago that I ordered this. That's assuming GMP. Also LCS Engineering, they're actually making some of these up. So if you wanted a bespoke tool actually made, and then also there's nothing to say that you can't just go and get a piece of pipe and put a bar through it and obviously Dremel the rest yourself, so it fits as long as it's the right size. Yeah, actually I can take a measurement of that for you, so you know. 30.47. So make your own assumptions on that one. It's not especially tight reading. Maybe just 30, depends on it's probably a 30 in width bar, and then the rest has come up, just based on the type of bar that they ordered. So in order to crack this off, obviously we're going to need an absolute metric ton of heat, okay, in order to get the Loctite to the melting point that we can actually start hammering that, and it's not making our job thing, because it is possible to hammer so hard that physically maybe the gun will start to bend, or the locking ring will start to deform, because obviously it's a soft metal in comparison to the hard metal of the tooling, and obviously there's always going to be a certain amount of play in there in order to create a backup and a bang, so to dent it. So like I say, there's possibility with so much banging and impacts that and obviously if you're trying to do this by hand on the desk like this, the gun's going to take a lot of the movement if you're trying to bang it. So really what we want is this to, if say Tokyo Marie's done this up hand tight and then simply use Loctite to do the rest, it's actually only done up hand tight, but the damn Loctite is doing the rest. So we need to get that Loctite to the point that turns liquid, and unfortunately, and this is why I've removed the bolt carrier group, this is an extreme amount of heat, like a lot of heat. So what you're going to be looking for is anything around this area that's plastic, okay? So basically you've got this small nut here, so just bear in mind when obviously you're pointing heat, this small little catch, that's plastic. Other than that, everything else in there is metal, okay? So inside the actual hop unit, you've actually got a metal arm, metal hop unit, and then the actual rubber itself is rubber, okay? So now rubber, for the most part, can take quite a lot of heat, so we're not too worried about that one, and also you're replacing it as well. So yeah, like I say, unfortunately, this particular gun, utter pain in the ass in order to take apart. So like I say, yeah, so I mean, like I say, even if we potentially cut the video right now, if you've got the majority of the information you now need, if you know what I mean, to sit and hammer away, quite literally, this at home. So I prefer to get it mounted in some sort of a jig, even if you end up having to buy something like maybe a gun mount or something, so they do real steel ones. Hang on, move that. This is just a real steel mount. Get all that tape off there and we'll do that properly. obviously the AEGs, which I normally use this for, thicker than real steel, but obviously the MWS obviously is closer to real steel specs. Yeah, she's still not going to go in, so that is as far as we're going to get on that one. It's clearly tighter than real steel. Okay, so I've got my simple vice set up on the left here, because obviously that's going to be turning left, lefty loosey. Okay, so we've got a decent amount of a base there in order to actually try and turn this. Okay, so obviously hit it left. I also prefer, on this particular rail system, they've actually got small notches left and right. However, again, soft metal versus hard metal, with the rail being hard, the gun being softer. So we obviously sort of, you know, there is the possibility of rocking, marking from sheer impacts of hammering this thing, if you know what I mean. So I prefer to go extra on top, which it can be. I don't want plastic, we want cloths. Is that going to be enough? Something smaller, a bit neater. That's what I have to do. Cutting this bad boy, I think. So, just size wise, right in the way. So this is just a simple riser mount for, you know, RIS rails. So they do, you know, you can buy these anywhere really. Simply to clamp onto a 20mm rail. Except obviously I've put the cloth in between just so we don't mark it. Just slacken off that bolt with a 3. Nope, 4. Okay, I think we're good. Right, plastic bits off. Okay, so obviously in this position, a little bit awkward for getting heat onto it, but I don't actually know what the framing is like for this camera. Yeah, it looks alright. Cool, 20 minutes. Right. So, unfortunately at some point, you have to start doing something and get coffee. So yeah, we're gonna obviously keep going with the heat, and then keep going with the heat, and then when we think we've done enough heat, we're obviously gonna touch the metal, we're gonna burn ourselves, and then we're gonna apply more heat in order to get it hot. Like I say, there's nothing around this whole area, so even if the heat gets to the point where it travels, yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure exactly what the melting point is for the thing. Suffice to say, it needs to be a decent amount. So we're going to keep going on this. And like I say, there's nothing on there that's, you know, that's plastic anymore, if you know what I mean, so that we can just keep going with this heat. Okay, so it looks like that cloth might not be good. I don't want to mark it. What's the melting point of cloth? What can we get on there? Anti-heat map? Alright, so let's try without it and see how many, if we can get it hot enough, maybe on that first hit we can get it off. Maybe. And what we'll do is we'll get it so it's really, really hot, and then maybe get that cloth back on there, but obviously that way it's not in the direct path of the thing, the heat. Yeah. Right, you'll need cloths. They're so hot to the touch. You'll burn your hand. Come on. Come on, you're getting colder by the second. Okay. Let's find out my hands are missing. Right, if she doesn't go, you have to do more.